Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another review. Now, the film I'm about to look at is a film that's been out, for a little while, and I've now finally had the opportunity to see it. It's a film that garnered a lot of buzz right from the beginning for both, I guess, positive reasons in terms of it being a shocking body horror movie, and for another reason which I'm not really going to get into, but there was this small business of a lawsuit and accusations of plagiarism, which I couldn't really give two shits about, because the buzz of this being a body horror film, and I love a horror film and I like body horror films, that's what garnered me interest. And there was a film that came out last year I was very high on, which was The Substance, and I'm hearing this has similarities to The Substance. I've watched The Substance a couple of more times since my first watch, and I still think very highly of the movie, but my opinion has slightly changed. So here we are with another movie in the same kind of vein as The Substance. So what is my opinion of this film? So let's get into it. Let's get cracking. Together is a 2025 supernatural body horror film written and directed by Michael Shanks in his directorial debut. The film stars real-life married actors Dave Franco and Alison Brie as a couple who move to the countryside and find themselves encountering a mysterious force that causes horrific changes in their bodies. So, straight away, hearing the plot, outline of what this is about, it immediately grabbed me, and I thought, oh, very interesting story. New director may have a fresh, look, fresh ideas, fresh, horror. Because let's face it, we need some originality out there in terms of Hollywood. And horror, for me, is the only genre within the world of film and Hollywood in general that seems to be doing well and seems to continue to thrive, because there's so much originality in it, and there's a lot of crap as well in the world of horror. Like Blumhouse are just pissing me off, but I like more independent horror movies, and I like independent movies that don't get the big Hollywood buzz or the promotional machine behind them, but always seem to deliver a good story in, always satisfying to the end. And when it comes to Together, I generally was satisfied by this movie, and I generally thought this movie was a fun ride. It's not, anything that I think is going to redefine horror or body horror, but it was a fun ride. So let's get into it. So right at the beginning of this movie, you get, you get this team of police officers and locals in this forest area, and they're looking for this missing couple. You are then introduced to these two lovely dogs that wander into this cave that's all, mysterious and has, these weird looking bells hanging around it. And they go into the cave, and there's like this pool of mysterious water, which they then take a sip of. And all I'm going to say, what happens in the next to them dogs was really kind of cruel and disturbing and freaky and yucky, and that's right at the beginning of the movie. You then flash forward to this young couple that's been together for a few years, and their relationships kind of hit this peak. It's kind of stalled. You've got the character played by Dave Franco called Tim. He's like an aspiring musician who, I believe it's kind of hinted he had some sort of contract with a label and he's being dropped, and he's kind of in this rut, and he's still kind of a selfish arsehole in many ways, how he kind of comes across. And then you meet his girlfriend Millie, who is played by Alison Brie, who is she's comes across controlling, comes across like she's the boss of the relationship, and she's like one of them who's very regimented. She kind of knows what she wants, she knows what she's doing, but generally it's because of love for him and because she's basically keeping the relationship alive. And they end up moving into the countryside, into this lovely house. She then is a school teacher in the school. She meets Jamie, who is a fellow teacher who's very nice but very quiet. And, you know, he is played by Damon Herriman. And basically, you know, she's trying to keep this relationship alive. And he's kind of lost. And he also has this, you know, sad backstory involving his parents, which you know, showcase through these very creepy and kind of dark nightmare sequences throughout the course of the early start of the movie, which really kind of you gain a bit of sympathy for him. And you kind of start to understand why he is the way he is. He also suffers with anxiety, and she's like trying to help him with that, but just also trying to like keep herself sane. And there's a lot of like, you know, kind of mash and back and forth with their relationship, and they're basically, like I see, at this crossroads and don't know if they're going to keep this relationship going. And then one day they both decide that they're going to go for a walk. So they end up going on this walk, and just like them dogs at the beginning of the film, it begins to rain, and they end up falling down into this cave, and they're kind of stranded in this cave, and they end up spending the night there, drinking the water from the pool that the dogs did. And like I say, as the film progresses, where they were at this crossroads and basically didn't know if they wanted to stay together. He's got his anxiety issues. He's stuck in this rut. She's just trying to, you know, keep the relationship live. And it's kind of where it was like stuck. They weren't doing anything together. They were like in this plateau. It suddenly becomes where they are constantly drawn to one another. They are constantly having to be together. They're constantly, he's, you know, he can't even go in another room and not be next to her. Like if she goes, for example, in a car and goes for a drive, he then starts having like what comes across like a seizure or some sort of hypnotic kind of effect. And as the film progresses, the plot gets darker, and you start to see the aftermaths of the events that's transpired from the very beginning within this couple. And for me, it was a real interesting take on, you know, codependency within a relationship. You know, how these two people depended on each other, but then also were stuck in they didn't know what to do next within the relationship. And then it's mixed in with these horror elements of, you know, them basically getting drawn to each other to the point they're physically stuck together. And once you get to those elements in the movie, that's when it gets more crazier. And, you know, there's certain elements with the body horror where, you know, even a simple kiss becomes painful. Even just, you know, standing next to each other and, you know, the legs touch and the legs kind of get stuck together and they have to pull them apart. It looks very, very painful. In this particular scene where all of a sudden he gets this urge after, years and years or months and months of no intimacy within the relationship. He decides to, I just want to be with this woman that I love. And they have this very passionate sequence and scene, but the end result, is coming. When that end sequence happens right at the end of this scene, I literally was sitting in my seat in the cinema, absolutely cringing and like, oh my God, I know what's happening. I know what's coming next. Oh my God, I can feel it. Oh no, it was so uncomfortable. And that was some of the magic of this movie, how you went on this journey with these two young people, this couple, and it felt like a real relationship. There was certainly chemistry there with Dave Franco and his real life wife. There was definitely real chemistry there. They felt like a real couple. Yes, they're a real couple obviously in real life, away from the cameras, but on camera, they made this couple very convincing. They made their scenario of this couple that's relationships at a crossroads very convincing. His story of having, feeling like lost and having anxiety and at a total loss for what direction his life's going in. Her being the woman that comes across bossy and controlling, but actually she's doing everything in her power to keep this relationship going, was so believable. And then when you got the element where all of this mysterious horror stuff began to happen within the confines of their home and within the relationship, it really, really felt horrific. It really felt kind of terrifying for the couple. You felt for the couple. And then, of course, you have the kind and caring next door neighbor who, he also has, it comes across that he's got some sort of crush. He's got a crush, and it's evident that he's shown signs of feeling for Millie, and it's quite evident, and even Dave Franco's character Tim picks up on it. But because they're kind of stuck in this drought, in this crossroads of a place, he's kind of like comes across like he doesn't give a shit, where really, if you were in a real loving place, or if your mind wasn't in another place, you would take it very serious that this other guy has got a crush on your girlfriend or wife. And that plays into the relationship as well, which also adds to when it gets to the body horror element in this kind of supernatural force, or this kind of element that's pulling them together, that's actually literally coming for them and like sticking them together. And it really adds to you wanting to root for this couple, but you're also kind of, you don't know how it's going to end. And the ending of this movie, the ending of this movie was quite strange to me as well. I was quite shocked with the ending, but in a positive way, because like I say, this movie starts off quite dark, quite moody. Then suddenly, once it's kind of revealed and Tim kind of figures out that something's happening with him and Millie, the film, even though it still has its dark element, it does have a lot of comedic value as well towards the end. There's quite a few one-liners or a number of comedy, elements that take place in this film. This particular scene, it's meant to be horrific, and it is horrific, but then there's also elements where they're talking and she's saying something and he's quite sarcastic to her. And I don't know if you're meant to be serious or if you're meant to laugh, but I laughed because I thought it was quite funny. So it definitely, as the film progresses, goes from this dark, moody place and then the horrible horror element to then towards the end, it feels kind of lighter for some reason. And then you get the comedy that suddenly just rushed into it, which for me did work. It did work despite it trying to be this serious body horror movie. The comedy elements towards the end did work. And then we need to talk about the actual body horror. The body horror in this, it's not too in your face. You kind of can see things coming, and when they come, you still kind of cringe and you still feel kind of uncomfortable with it, especially the bathroom scene that I mentioned when they're having this passionate moment. That scene is the cringiest move in the movie. The effects in this movie, I think there's there's definitely practical effects in this movie. The practical effects in the cave near the end of the movie, where there's a bit of a reveal, I thought the practical effects there was really well done. I believe that the person who worked on the effects on this movie, he worked, I believe, on Furiosa. I think he worked on Furiosa, and I think he did a great job with the effects and displaying the body horror, because it also helped hype the tension and, you know, the uncomfortableness of the scenes. But then right at the end, the final shot in this movie, me and my friend who's seen this in theaters, we giggled. We giggled at the last shot in the movie because, one, we're kind of, when we're seeing it was revealed what happened to the couple, we kind of looked at each other and we're like, giggled. So we found it funny, but I also enjoyed it. I also, it quite surprised. It surprised us and it made us giggle. But it's something that I didn't see coming either. I didn't know how this film was going to end, to be truthful. But it was a satisfying ending. I thought it really ended the film on quite an interesting note. But overall, when I think of Together, I love the elements of the body horror. I love the realistic relationship and how it's about a real life couple that are having issues. They're struggling with their identities and they're struggling at this crossroads on what to do with the relationship and where, you know, they should take it. And that plays into telling a really good horror story. And I think they did a good job with this. I really do. And the body horror elements really help to intensify, I guess, the more emotional sides of these characters with, you know, their real issues that they're going through. And now they've got to deal with this situation of literally being stuck together. So I think the director, it's his first directorial debut, his first, you know, big film that he's ever worked on. I think he generally has done a great job at this. Dave Franco, he's not really an actor I follow, but I generally thought he did a great job at the role of Tim. Alison, Brie, his wife, I thought she was believable as well. And like I say, the story is an interesting story, and I think what really makes it pop is obviously the elements of the body horror. So if I'm gonna rate Together, I think I'm gonna rate this a 8 out of 10. I think 8 out of 10 is a strong rating for this film. Is it the best horror film of the year? I would say no. Is it a fun movie? Yes, I think everyone should give it a watch and give your thoughts on it. I do think it won't disappoint. I think, if you like The Substance, I definitely think you'll like this. Like I said at the beginning, my views of The Substance have slightly changed, but I still like it. And this gives me vibes of The Substance. It made us feel uncomfortable. It made us, feel for the couple. And I thought the general effects and the story was a good story to be told on screen. So, like I say, 8 out of 10 for Together. Let me know in the comments below if you have seen Together. Let me know what you thought of Together. Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? What did you think of the special effects? What do you think of Dave Franco? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, enjoy your movies, enjoy all things entertainment, and I'll catch us all at the next one.